Chapter 1. Stoicism is a philosophy of deeds. It is all about learning to live a good and virtuous life. Contrary to popular belief, philosophy isn't about having your face buried in books all day long, ruminating on the biggest questions of life as you gradually ostracize yourself from society. The truth is, philosophy is all about learning to become a better person. Anything else, according to philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, is nothing more than a critique of words with other words. This school of thought that believes deeds trump words or ideas is the foundation of the ancient philosophy of Stoicism, which was born in Athens, Greece, in the 4th century BC. According to the Roman-era Stoic philosopher Seneca, the primary purpose of reading and study is to live a good and happy life. Unfortunately, in our world today, philosophy is all about what smart people say, what big words they use, what paradoxes and riddles they can confuse us with. No wonder most people would rather steer clear of it because it seems so impractical. And quite frankly, this modern-day pen and ink philosophy is impractical. All the Stoics cared about was how well they lived and how virtuous they were. To them, the quality of one's choices, causes, and principles was much more important than mere words. Stoicism was a philosophy of action, and its core virtues, courage, self-control, justice, and wisdom, are still as relevant today as they were in ancient times. Each Stoic philosopher who lived centuries ago has something crucial to teach us. We all need to learn from the way each of them trod the path of virtue. There is a lot to learn from their life experiences, philosophical writings, and even their deaths. Yes, Stoics believed we are all born to die, whether naturally, by assassination, by suicide, or by laughing too hard at a joke, as was the case with Chrysippus. To them, philosophy wasn't just about learning how to live, but also learning how to die. So, the Stoics teach us wisely not only to live, but also how to face the most terrifying part of life, death. By their examples, they teach us the art of going out well. In this summary, we'll be looking at the lives of powerful Stoic philosophers, who, though they are long gone, have great, relevant lessons to teach each of us through the stories of how they lived and died. Chapter 2. Never give up. Be courageous and persevere in the face of hardship. Though Stoicism has grown to become a world, it didn't have a glorious beginning. It all started in the 4th century BC with one man's misfortune. That man was Zeno, the Phoenician merchant. Zeno's family made their fortune trading Tyrian purple dye, a rare dye that was highly valued. On a fateful day, while on a voyage on the Mediterranean Sea, Zeno was shipwrecked. No one could tell exactly what caused the wreck. Was it human error, pirates, a storm? No one knows. Zeno lost everything, both cargo and ship. This was an irreplaceable fortune in an age where there was nothing like insurance or venture capital. He made it to the shore safely and headed to the nearest city, Athens. One day in Athens, Zeno went to a bookstore to get something to read when he discovered that there was a talk going on. Zeno took his seat in the audience and listened to the bookseller read a medley of works about Socrates, the philosopher who had been put to death in Athens a century earlier, and whose ideas Zeno's father had taught him growing up. After the talk, Zeno approached the bookseller and asked a question that would change his life forever and lead to the birth of a new philosophy. Where can I find a man like that? That is, where can I find my own Socrates, a wise philosopher who can help me with my choice? The bookseller introduced Zeno to Crates of Thebes, an Athenian philosopher. He started studying under Crates and gradually began developing the thinking and principles that are now known as Stoicism. In essence, don't be discouraged when things get tough. Even when it seems you've hit a dead end, you need not be defeated. Confront your situation like a Stoic with courage and perseverance. You'll eventually overcome the hurdles and make something of yourself. Most people, especially in today's age, would have been left devastated and totally crushed by such an unfortunate turn of fortune Zeno experienced. Instead of dwelling on his misfortune, however, Zeno confronted his situation with courage, persevered, and was eventually able to reinvent himself as a philosopher. According to historians, Zeno would later rejoice in his loss, saying, "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered a shipwreck." For it was the shipwreck that led him to Athens and on the path to creating what would become Stoic philosophy. Chapter 3. Dare to be different. Never let yourself be intimidated or pretend to be who you're not. Unlike prominent Stoics who came after Zeno, little is known about Pausanias Agrippinus. We don't know much about his writings, his upbringing, when he was born, or when and how he died. Despite all the unknowns, however, Agrippinus stands out from the historical record as a distinctive figure who was distinct even among the bravest and most renowned Stoics of his era. This wasn't a coincidence, because in a Roman Empire that, during the reign of the notorious Emperor Nero, had given itself over fully to greed and corruption, anyone who truly lived by the Stoic principles, like Agrippinus, would indeed be distinct. Agrippinus believed we are all threads in a garment. That is, we all tend to flock in the same direction, indistinguishable from each other. This was especially true in Agrippinus's time. Most people happily followed the tide, conformed to the corrupt culture, and accepted their unsung role as a thread among countless others in the fabric. Indeed, nobody can really blame them, because the best strategy under a capricious and cruel ruler like Nero, who holds the power of life and death, is to blend in and keep a low profile. To Agrippinus, however, this kind of compromise was inconceivable. No matter how terrible the consequences of being different were, he refused to pretend to be who he was not. To Agrippinus, there should be no hemming and hawing about the right thing. There should be no weighing of options. Ryan Holiday. In our society today, most people have lost their identities. They've buckled to the pressure to conform, and they've lost sight of their uniqueness. Even though individuality and autonomy have become buzzwords these days, they remain nothing more than mere words. We claim to be unique and independent, but our choices and lifestyle say something else entirely. When push comes to shove, we think and act just like everybody else. Not Agrippinus, though. He dared to stand out, to be bright red, even if it meant being banished from the empire or even executed. You don't have to do what others are doing just because you want to feel like you belong. Dare to stand out. Embrace your uniqueness and never lose sight of what makes you, you. Chapter 4. Like Cato, embrace high standards and be uncompromising. Have you ever looked at someone and thought, God, how did they do it? Where did that strength and courage come from? Marcus Porcius Cato was someone like that. There was even a common expression during his days, we can't all be Catos. Almost every renowned Stoic in history was famous, in part, for what they said and wrote. Cato, however, achieved towering fame not for his words, but for what he did and who he was. Right from a very tender age, it was clear that Cato was a determined and strong-willed individual. Beneath this determination, there was also an intense, almost radical devotion to liberty and justice. He didn't stand for bullying, even in childhood games, and would step in to defend younger boys from older ones. Cato became a quaestor at the age of 30, which was his first political office. It's always been Cato's goal to harness the power of politics in eliminating corruption in Rome. And true to his values, Cato used his term as quaestor to overhaul the treasury, get rid of all the corrupt personnel, and retrieve all looted public funds. He was always the first to get to work each morning and the last to leave. He took pleasure in saying no to the pet projects of politicians looking to dubiously divert state funds to their personal pockets. He was so committed that his legendary determination became a political cover for his less stringent colleagues. When their constituents lobbied for handouts, politicians would shrug and say, "It's impossible. Cato will not consent." You see, humans have a natural inclination to care what people think of them. We don't want to look too different, so we do what everyone else does. We follow the crowd and behave like everybody else, so we'll be accepted. In doing this, however, we weaken ourselves. We compromise, often without knowing it, and let ourselves be bought. A very important lesson you can learn from Cato's life is to embrace high standards and never be swayed by others to do things you're not proud of. Unlike almost every other Stoic, Cato actively practiced the idea of being indifferent to everything but virtue. He believed his job was to serve the public good, not his family, not himself, not expediency, but the nation. This, to Cato, is what real philosophy was about. Did you know? Cato's strictness created a lot of enemies. Because of his principles, he was at odds throughout his life with many powerful and hostile political figures vying for control in Rome. Chapter 5. The main ingredient of freedom is our ability to choose how we respond to situations in life. Right from his birth in Hierapolis in 55 AD, Epictetus was a slave. Somehow, despite his humble beginnings, his perseverance, his perspective, and his sheer self-sufficiency would make Epictetus go down in history as the ultimate symbol of the ability of humans to find true freedom in the darkest of circumstances. At some point in his 30s, Epictetus became a free man and chose to dedicate himself fully to philosophy. Unlike the other Stoics, who were wealthy heirs, generals, senators, and advisors, Epictetus was one of the first to follow what today we might call an academic route. And he gained a large following almost immediately. You can bind up my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to break my freedom of choice. Epictetus. Epictetus's experiences as a slave influenced his most powerful insight as a teacher. Born into captivity, he was reminded daily how little control he had, even of his own person. Drawing on these experiences as he came to study and understand Stoicism, he came up with what he called our primary assignment in life. Our principal task, according to Epictetus, is to identify and separate matters so that we can clearly distinguish between which are externals, not under our control, and which have to do with the choices we actually control. Once we can differentiate between what is up to us and what is not, what's left is to focus on what we can change. Our attitudes, emotions, desires, and our views of what has happened to us are all a matter of perception. As powerless as we are over what happens to us in life, we have the ability to choose how we respond. According to Epictetus, there are two handles to every situation in life. One is weak and the other is strong. No matter how undesirable the situation in which we find ourselves, we can choose which handle we'll grab. For instance, our work gets deleted because of a glitch on the computer. Are we going to lose our cool and yell at the screen all day? Or are we going to see what happened as an opportunity to start afresh and do an even better job? The handle we choose to grab in every situation and everyone we deal with day in and day out determines what kind of life we live and what kind of person we will be. Chapter 6. Cultivating the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism is the key to living a happy life. In his writings, Arrius Didymus, one of the Stoic philosophers for the first Roman Emperor Augustus, outlined the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism: bravery, andria, self-control, sophrosun, justice, dikaiosun, wisdom, phronesis. To Arrius, there wasn't anything in the world that measured up to these 4 virtues. Everything that was good had them, and everything that was evil lacked them. Everything else was irrelevant and indifferent. Arrius's definition of the 4 core Stoic virtues were straightforward, and because he believed that virtue, in essence, is knowledge, he defined each of the 4 virtues as follows. Wisdom is the knowledge of appropriate acts, kathekonta, the knowledge of the things that must be done and the things that must not be done. Wisdom encompasses virtuous qualities like circumspection, shrewdness, sensibleness, soundness of judgment, ingenuity, and soundness of aim. Self-control is the knowledge of the things that are worth avoiding and the things that are worth choosing. In the virtue of self-control, we can find other virtues such as propriety, modesty, orderliness, and self-mastery. Justice is the knowledge of allotting every situation and person what is due. This virtue comprises kindness, good fellowship, fair dealing, and piety, giving gods their due. Bravery is the knowledge of the things that are terrible, the things that aren't, and the things that are neither. Under this virtue, we can find other virtues like great-heartedness, stout-heartedness, philoponia, industriousness, perseverance, and intrepidness. Unlike these 4 virtues, injustice, cowardness, stupidity, and lack of restraint all lack knowledge. If we want to live a life of tranquility and happiness, we must work to cultivate these virtues. Living a virtuous life is the ultimate goal of Stoicism. There is no problem or challenge so big that it can't be made better with wisdom, courage, self-control, and justice. And every moment, every situation in which we find ourselves in life is an opportunity to exemplify one, a combination, or all of the 4 core virtues. In essence, the best way to approach is to focus on the task at hand and waste not a single second on the tasks that are not ours. In all our dealings in life, we must be courageous, we must be fair, we must be disciplined, and above all, we must be wise. Chapter 7. Marcus Aurelius never compromised his standard, even in the face of adversity. As the emperor of the great Roman Empire, one might think Marcus Aurelius had a perfect and rosy life, but that wasn't the case. Historians believed he was afflicted with recurring health problems and that, of all the 13 children he had with his wife Faustina, only 5 lived to adulthood. To make matters worse, his reign as emperor was marked by 19 years of war at the Roman borders and the Antonine Plague that afflicted Rome for over 13 years and claimed the lives of about 5 million people. Roman historian Dio Cassius believed Marcus Aurelius didn't enjoy the good fortune he deserved. Waste no more time talking about what a good man is like. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Despite his many afflictions, however, Marcus remained a staunch Stoic. He believed that no matter the trials and tribulations we may face in life, we must never stop protecting our character. To Marcus Aurelius, wars and plagues may be bad, but they are not as evil as the sheer act of abandoning one's character in the face of adversity. Towards the end of Marcus Aurelius's life, his right-hand general and most trusted ally, Avidius Cassius, turned on him and tried to steal the throne in a coup. Even though he had the right to be angry, Marcus Aurelius stayed true to everything he believed and didn't let the betrayal move him. Instead of punishing Avidius Cassius or executing him instantly like any other leader in that era would have done, Marcus saw the whole situation as an opportunity to approach peace, forgiveness, and compassion. He told his soldiers to settle the issue amicably, to show the world that nothing is beyond forgiveness. Marcus' cardinal life principle was a simple one. Always do the right thing, no matter the circumstances in which you find yourself in life. Conclusion. Stoicism is a philosophy of life that has to do with learning to become a better person, living life to the fullest, and dying well. To the Stoics, how they lived their lives mattered tremendously. They cared deeply about the choices they made, the causes they served, and the principles they adhered to in the face of adversity. They also valued their actions and deeds more than their words. The Stoic philosophy is grounded on 4 cardinal virtues: courage, self-control, justice, and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic Roman emperor, put these virtues on the highest pedestal when he wrote, "If you ever find anything better than justice, honesty, self-control, courage, embrace it without reservations." Indeed, these virtues are extraordinary. Nothing in the world measures up to these 4 virtues. Everything that is good has them, and everything that is evil lacks them. Everything else is irrelevant and indifferent. Every single moment in life is an opportunity to practice one or a combination of all of these virtues. No matter how great the problem or the challenge, it can be made better with wisdom, courage, self-control, and justice. So as modern-day Stoics, we must put in the effort like the old Stoics did to cultivate the 4 core virtues of Stoicism. This is the key to living a good and tranquil life. Now that you know the Stoic philosophy is all about living a virtuous life, start living your life in line with the 4 cardinal virtues. In everything you do from now on, be disciplined, be fair, be wise, and be courageous. Try this. To develop the key Stoic virtues, hold yourself accountable for your actions and always review your day. Take time to reflect daily and never go to bed without contemplating the implications and life lessons you gain during the day. After each day, ask yourself, what did I do well today? Were my self-control and discipline tested at any point during the day? How did I handle the situation? Where did I go against my values, and why did this happen? How can I do better tomorrow? By regularly scrutinizing yourself and reflecting on your actions, you will become more self-aware and more apt to live virtuously.